Michael Wilson had been preparing to tell his wife the uncomfortable truth for almost half a year. His feelings for his wife had faded, and he didn't think reviving them was possible. Unfortunately, he wasn't too concerned about the fact that they had 2 children together. True, the eldest son was finishing high school, and the youngest daughter had already started 6th grade. But was it an important enough reason not to get divorced? Michael certainly didn't think so. Evelyn, on the other hand, well, it would be an unfortunate surprise for her. Everyone saw the Wilson family as the perfect example of an honest and decent relationship. They lived modestly, but not in poverty, of course. Michael worked as the head of the department at a trading firm, and Evelyn was a school teacher. The problems in their relationship began when Michael met Diana. The most beautiful young woman had joined his department as an intern, and initially, no one could have guessed what it would lead to. Michael had kept his distance from Diana for quite some time. It continued this way for about a month, but then things took a completely different turn. Diana made the first move, of course. It happened at one of the corporate events organized by the company to celebrate the upcoming Thanksgiving Day. The cozy atmosphere, live music, and a bit to drink did their job. Seating herself at the table next to the department head, Diana immediately used her charm to captivate him. Michael just sat there, unable to believe his eyes. Evelyn never showed any interest in Michael before, and he was used to her not paying any attention to him. But now this young, beautiful woman was basically confessing her feelings for him. Time seemed to fly by while they engaged in a lively conversation. The event was coming to an end, and all the employees started leaving. "Michael, could you maybe walk me home? I live on the other side of the city. Of course, I could take a cab, but I'd rather take a walk with you," Diana said in a seductive tone. Michael involuntarily glanced at his wristwatch and hesitated. It was already late, and Evelyn and the kids were waiting for him at home. But could anything be better than this late-night stroll? As for his family, well, they weren't going anywhere. After all, he deserved some rest, didn't he? Continuing to justify himself in his own eyes, Michael took Evelyn's hand and led her to the embankment. In the dark of the night, illuminated by the lights of thousands of lanterns, it looked simply beautiful and captivating. Strolling along the embankment, Michael and Diana chatted about everything in the world, feeling a growing mutual attraction. There, they sealed their feelings with a real, sensual, and passionate kiss. At the same time, Michael tried not to think about his phone buried deep in the pocket of his jacket. Of course, it was turned off, so Evelyn couldn't reach Michael. Tired of waiting for her husband to come home, she pursed her lips and decided to go to bed. Michael only came home early in the morning. Lowering his eyes, he tried to tell her some story about problems at work and a car that broke down. Evelyn didn't start a fight. Instead, she pretended to believe her husband. Doing her best to ignore the pungent smell of female perfume coming from her husband's clothes, she made a cup of coffee for him and went back into the bedroom. Of course, she couldn't fall asleep. Troubling thoughts occupied her mind, and all she could think about was Michael. Why did he lie so shamelessly? When she couldn't reach her husband, Evelyn got worried and called his colleagues, so she knew he'd left the event several hours before coming home. Fortunately, the company's deputy director was a smart man and refrained from telling Evelyn that Michael didn't leave the event alone, but with a beautiful young woman. Ever since then, Michael seemed to have become a different person. Now he stayed late at work nearly every day, always coming up with a logical explanation for it. At first, it was the upcoming negotiations, then the quarterly reports, and then the opening of a new branch on the other side of the city. As a loving wife, Evelyn believed everything Michael told her. But when her husband distanced himself from her even more, she realized that their relationship was in trouble. They weren't as close as they had used to be. They weren't really in love anymore, but rather used to each other. Michael tried to hide his rapidly developing affair with Diana from his colleagues for as long as he could. Initially, they tried to meet up discreetly. But then they got a little bolder and stopped seeing anything reprehensible in their relationship. Diana was especially open about it. She spoke about her relationship with the department head at every opportunity she got. Soon, rumors began to spread among the office staff, and the subordinates saw Michael Wilson in a completely different light. They'd never seen him like this before. Darling, maybe you shouldn't rush to tell everyone about our relationship. I'm still married after all. This could have a negative effect on my reputation. Michael tried to reason with Diana. The young woman raised an eyebrow in surprise. You want me to keep quiet about our relationship? But why? I'm a single woman and have the right to decide how to live my life. And you, what are you so worried about? Just file for divorce and be done with it. What's so special about Evelyn that you're still hesitating? Michael frowned. Initially, he perceived their relationship as nothing more than an affair that would help him regain his taste for life. Nothing serious, just a fun way to pass the time with some innocent flirting. But now he saw everything in a completely different light, especially considering that Diana was already seriously talking about their life together. But was Michael ready for it? Even he couldn't say for sure. Diana unilaterally decided to make their affair into something bigger, which required decisive action on his part. Trying to figure out his feelings, Michael resembled an animal cornered by his own passions and desires. Feeling that something strange was going on with her husband, Evelyn tried her best to fix the situation, but it was all in vain. She had repeatedly noticed that Michael received love-related texts on his phone, but tried to hold herself back and refrain from starting a fight with him. Their older son Josh also noticed the changes in his father's behavior, but for some reason was too embarrassed to ask his mother about it. The thing was, the boy didn't want his parents to end up getting divorced. Unfortunately, according to his friends, all the trouble usually started with such strange behavior and disagreements between the parents. Having summoned his courage, Josh asked his mother about it, but her response didn't clarify the situation. Son, I think you should ask your father about it. Nothing's changed on my side. I still value our family above everything else, just as I always did. Josh nodded understandingly, but decided against asking his dad the same question, especially since Michael soon shed light on the situation himself. Having come home from work well past midnight, he entered the bedroom and said quietly, I'm filing for divorce, Evelyn. I can't bear to live like this anymore. Having failed to get a response from his wife, Michael trudged to the kitchen. Meanwhile, Evelyn buried her face in her pillow and cried silently. For years, she had been a faithful and loving wife to Michael, and now he decided that their marriage was a mistake. But what about Josh and Sandra? How could she explain everything to the children? Michael sat in the kitchen and contemplated his side of the story. In reality, what led him to decide to divorce his wife was Diana, who announced that she was expecting a child. A child? Are you pregnant? Michael asked, perhaps the dumbest question in his life. Diana smiled and hugged him. Well, of course I'm pregnant, silly. I'm pregnant with your child. Who else could be the father when we see each other virtually every day? Michael swallowed hard. But you're over 40. When you're over 40, sometimes news of having a child evokes feelings that have nothing to do with joy. Meanwhile, Diana was on cloud 9. Getting the head of the sales department to marry you, that wasn't a bad deal at all. So what if he's already married? He'd get divorced soon, and then she'd be the only woman in his life. And he was soon going to get promoted, which would help him get another step up on the career ladder. Since divorce proceedings take time, Evelyn decided not to rush and start by consulting a lawyer. She wanted to know what she could get in the event of the divorce and how would the rights of her kids be protected, and how the divorce would affect their lives. All of this needed special attention and seemed straightforward only at first glance. Now that Michael had come forward, he could finally move in with Diana and no longer needed to hide their relationship. Although, truth be told, almost half of the town already knew about it, and only Evelyn remained in the dark all this time. The first week at Diana's house seemed like a fairy tale to Michael. Dinners together, watching movies on the couch, and nights full of passion. But then, Michael suddenly felt a certain awkwardness when talking to his beloved. The thing was, unlike Evelyn, Diana didn't know his tastes and preferences at all. She cooked spicy food, being unaware of Michael's sensitive stomach, and lounged around lazily on the days he was at work. Evelyn, on the other hand, was completely different, hardworking and responsible. She managed to do everything on time, cook dinner, do the laundry, and help their daughter with their homework. Moreover, Evelyn never complained about her life. Meanwhile, Diana got sick of playing the role of housewife by the second week of living together. She didn't want to cook a special diet for Michael. The house was always messy, and he had to take his clothes to the laundromat. Then, Michael accidentally found out that Diana had lied to him about her pregnancy. It was all because of a call from her doctor she got on her landline. Ironically, Michael picked up the phone. That's when he found out that Diana had lied to him. She had recently come in for a checkup and there was no sign of any pregnancy. Oh, so that's how it is. Starting our family life with a lie, are we? Well, okay, Michael muttered. At that moment, for the first time in several months, he realized that he'd perhaps made the most regrettable mistake in his life. As Michael had his divorce hearing scheduled for the next day, he came up with a new plan of action. At first, he decided to behave as if none of it was hard for him, and then he'd get to the main thing. Evelyn, on the other hand, knew nothing about Michael's plan and was preparing for a long and gruesome divorce. At first, Michael behaved as he had planned, arrogantly and confidently. But then, seeing composure and determination on Evelyn's face, he faltered and hastily left the hall. And when 5 minutes before the start of the court hearing, Michael approached his wife with the bouquet of white roses, she froze in amazement. Please forgive me, my dear. I made a mistake, and I admit it. I don't want anyone but you. Tears welled up in Evelyn's eyes. It all seemed like a fairy tale, where she was cast as a princess who broke the spell of the evil witch. Since Michael expected a clear answer from his wife, she didn't hesitate long. Wiping away a tear, Evelyn said, "Okay, darling, let's try and start anew, but from a clean slate. We will build our new relationship on mutual understanding and respect." Michael picked up his wife joyfully and spun her around the hall. At that moment, he'd felt like he'd been waiting for her answer for an eternity. Other people at the courthouse stopped and looked in surprise at the not-so-young couple in love who decided to start all over again. The judge smiled and hesitated for a moment, but then started applauding loudly, setting an example for everyone else. That day, all those people at the courthouse got to witness a true miracle that can only happen when two people are truly in love with each other.